So this is going to be my fourth growing season coming up in, the this coming growing season for 2022. It's kind of funny. I was looking through my pictures and wondering when I first had my garden, like 4 years ago, I guess. We used to have like our property, our house was looked like the Adams family. I remember being younger and like joking with friends like, I live at the Adams family house, because it was bad, just how I transformed it. But it was like over the summer that I did that. And I think it was 2018, I believe. 2017. Yeah. It was like the summer of 2017. The first thing that I ever grew was a moonflower. And it was actually what prompted me to start growing them or to start my own garden. I think one day randomly I had remembered that I like it was something that always fascinated me. And so I just, before having a garden or anything, I just decided to grow a moonflower one day. And it's the Ipomia alba. And I I planted it, and I remember as soon as I saw that first flower, I was like, wow. Like smelling the flower, looking at the flower, especially it being like for like a moon garden or a fragrance garden. I was like really like hooked. Like I was like, wow, I really, really want to like do this with a lot of things and everywhere. And at the time my interest in it lied more in the fact that it was so beautiful, but it was also really poisonous. And so my initial vision from I had in my head back then was not to have a fragrance garden. Actually, it was to have a poison garden. I initially wanted to only grow really, really dangerous poisonous plants, and I sort of did that first season. And I wouldn't recommend this. This is something that I think even expert gardeners probably would, there was just a lot of different fears that went into that. And it wasn't easy also. And it was just, I just remember it being kind of scary all the time. And I didn't like the way that felt. And then finally, after a while, I started thinking like, why am I doing this again? Yeah, I think they're beautiful. And there was like the juxtaposition of like beauty and both kind of like deadliness was something that really like fascinated me. Kind of existing in one thing, something synonymous with fire, with the power to heal and both the power to kill, is something that at the time appealed more to my poetic sensibilities. And as time passed, I definitely started to kind of really realize that what I really, really loved was the fragrance, and I wanted a scent garden. I think there was a time that I even thought I wanted like a purely a moon garden because it was white flowers that I really loved. Growing moonflowers, but getting them to bloom. I grew them for the first 2 years, and then I finally didn't the third year because they were just kind of frustrating for me. But in the experience, the very short kind of experience I have with these flowers, for you who are wanting to grow them but get lots of blooms on them, this would be how you do it. And I'm planning on doing it this year, actually. I really want moonflowers again for my 2022 garden. And I have some like pergolas or trellis, like metal trellises I got from my sweet pea. When those are spent, I really want to twine moonflower vines through them at the very, very back end of my garden, like towards the windows, like almost on the windows, because I have a white design I'm doing. I'm growing a white rose, white plumeria, and a gardenia, which hopefully will give me some residual blooms throughout the summer. I'm hoping it will. It usually does. It's the August Beauty gardenia that I planted there. And anyway, yeah. So this right here are my moonflowers seeds. I actually harvested these like several years ago. So it was like 15, 20 seeds. The majority of them actually weren't viable anymore, but I got 6 right here, and I only wanted 3, so 6 was plenty. I've seen some videos where people just immediately put them in water and soak them for 24 hours, but obviously by doing that, you're not really going to get that viability from the seeds that are viable sprouting, germinating. You might think that only a few of them were viable because only a few of them sprouted. It's because of that coat is just so thick, they have to be scarified. So you just take a knife. I think one year I did a knife. Another year I used my Fordham. Just now I just use a knife. I mean, you need a bit of hand strength to do it, but you can also sand it. That takes much longer. Just hold the seed in the very center, not the grooved part, but the rounded part. Just cut a slit in it that's maybe like 4 or 5 millimeters long. That goes in maybe 2 millimeters. You're just wanting to cut that coat. It'll just make it a lot easier for those sprouts to come out, and you'll see them over that 24-hour period start to emerge from the seeds. I'm actually going to place this on a heat mat because the warmer the water, the better, I think. By the way, if it's floating immediately, like when you put a seed like this in water, it's not viable. So they need to sink to the bottom to know that they are viable seeds. So I did that before I even scarified them. And the next thing that you're going to want to do, I'm going to keep these briefly under my grow lights. I'll probably be able to take them out in a week. I'm not going to be able to put them in on those trellises though until the sweet peas are done and gone. And that, I have a feeling that it might be till like late May I might get sweet pea. The problem that people have with moonflowers is that they only provide a few blooms. First of all, this is a really, really like hot weather kind of annual, I guess you could say. I think it's a perennial and only like 9 to 11. It might even be like 10 or 11. They go to seed though, so you just collect those seeds and you plant them again. The problem is they don't start blooming until no earlier than usually midsummer. However, if the weather's hot enough, I mean, these could bloom really early. I've seen people grow these from seed and have them bloom like 6 weeks later. It depends on what you're doing, I think. So if you listen to what I'm about to tell you, then this is going to get them to bloom sooner and to give you lots and lots of blooms. So once you are able to take them outside, once temperatures are consistently, like I would say, well past that point of a late frost, and you have it outside, first things first, even if you're planning on putting this in the ground, you need to put it in a container. And it needs to go in like a pot with actual sides, like a terracotta pot, a plastic pot. I don't mean like a Jiffy Pea pot. I mean like a pot that's going to inhibit root growth. Something like maybe a 1 to 2 gallon kind of pot. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to use clay, mostly clay, and add something like a soil conditioner, a bark-based soil conditioner, and just those two things, nothing else. You're not going to put any compost, no kind of potting soil, just like your standard native clay and a soil conditioner with a bark kind of medium, mixing that well together. And you could compost the top of the soil level just to make it look nicer, but I'm talking like the actual potting soil that you're using for these containers to plant these moonflowers in should be clay and a soil conditioner. The next thing you're going to do when you're mixing these two things together is to right off the bat mix in bone meal, a phosphorus. You could mix in like a potassium maybe. I wouldn't do that. I would just use pure bone meal. Don't use one with any. The one thing you don't want is nitrogen. You do not want nitrogen in that. So just pure bone meal, pure phosphorus. I would use like 1 seedling per container. 1 seedling, I mean, can take off and can really like take over one whole trellis. These things grow really, really, really long. They're vining plants. So anyway, what I'm going to do is do what I just told you, but I'm going to sink those containers I'm doing 3. I'm going to sink them one every, at the very back of my main garden, every like 2 feet, I guess. Put the trellis like right there in that spot. So, and at the ground level, I'll definitely cover up the container because I'm literally sinking that container in the ground. And I'll probably compost the surface just to make it look like it's coming out of the soil, but it'll really be in that container. And it'll start vining early summer on those trellises, and by midsummer, if not sooner, I would think here this year it'll be sooner, I'll get flowers, and I'm planning on taking pictures and maybe even doing a video. I'm hoping that I get like dozens and dozens and dozens of bloom on each of these trellises. That'll be the perfect backdrop to my other white plants that are going to be in front of it. This is going to work as a backdrop to that. And then I want to have other summer annuals or smaller plants, maybe not white, to go in front of the rose and the plumeria and the gardenia. I wasn't planning on doing a white design. This is just something that kind of happened out of necessity. For me, I originally wanted multiple roses, but I unfortunately didn't get to do that. So I'm going to, yeah, go with this. I mean, this is just the very back of my main garden, so it's okay to have there's the way my garden the design of my garden works, it kind of goes in, it's 2 rings. There's like an outer ring towards the edges, and then there's like an inner ring. And then I also have 3 ponds. This spring, I'm actually creating that for that center pond. I'm actually removing that and putting that concrete one that I have on the back porch, and I'm making an in-ground pond that's going to be much bigger. Yeah, and that'll be right next to that weeping cherry, and I want it to be, you to be able to see from the road clearer to the very back of the garden. And also I need something, a pond of adequate size that will work for the kind of water lily that I'm going to be putting there. So yeah, if you want moonflowers and you want them to bloom prolifically and know how to do it right, that would be how you do it. Anyway, yeah. Thank you guys for watching.